what is one thing you might recommend to some of us who are on that struggle bus right now? And
did you call it a struggle bus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Struggling right now to keep trying. Yeah, what is one thing you guys might recommend to each of us?
I mean, I would ask, maybe turn to a close friend and ask your friend, what do you feel like you're supposed to be doing right now? And really pausing and sitting with that question. Because if something is sort of giving you deep dissatisfaction or uneasiness inside, a good day's work does not beat you up. A good day's work in a really toxic context might beat you up. A day's work or 2 days' work done in one day, yeah, that should really mess you up, right? A good day's work 7 days a week, no, you need some time to rest, right? A good day's work 7 days a week, not calling mom and dad, probably not good, right? So it's good to just sort of get into each other's faces about this and say, hey, how are you and what does not feel right now? And what changes do you need to make? So I'm just going to tell you a story really quickly. I used to be on faculty at Yale Medical School. And when I was on faculty at Yale, I got an award to go to divinity school, to get my ethics degree. So I'm a full-time faculty person. I'm a half-time graduate student, and I have 2 little kids and a spouse, and about 2,000 primary care patients who, just because I'm not in the office, even though I was still in the office half-time, they still needed me, right? It was probably the busiest time of my life. And I remember just like, okay, get home, get the kids fed, get them in bed, start my grad studies, hit Saturday, work all day, try to really maximize my kids' nap time. Do you remember those days? I wish my kids still took naps. They don't anymore. So every minute of my day was scheduled, and I need 7 hours of sleep. So it would be right up to 11 o'clock, so that I could go to bed and get up at 6. And this is what I did for many years to finish that degree. I remember one night I was working, and a friend of mine was going through a divorce. And she showed up at my house and said, I need to talk. Let me tell you, everything in me shouted, tell her it's not a good time, right? But of course I knew you cannot tell a friend in a bad situation it's not a good time. And actually the louder voice in my heart was, be a human being, And so another question you can ask each other is, where have you lost some of your humanity, or where do you feel like you've become dehumanized a little bit, especially through the grind of education? What's been dehumanizing for you? And then where and how can you reclaim a little bit of that humanity, the deeply human part of yourself?
It's a wonderful answer. I think that our bodies and our being actually have a kind of wisdom about them that we don't often acknowledge. Like there are ways that our bodies can tell us things about what we need to be thinking about, what we need to be taking more seriously, that we may not be paying attention to. And of course, sometimes they manifest themselves in the form of pains or sleeplessness. They can also manifest themselves in the form of questions, right? Like the very question, like why do we even try? Like when does a question arise? Right? Like when do you even ask yourself, like, why do I try or why bother? Like I think the question arises when you feel out of sync, right? Like when you feel like there's a disconnect between what you are doing and what you feel you should be doing, right? There's something in us, I think, at times that craves a different perspective. And so we wind up asking ourselves questions, right? Like we wind up asking questions of ourselves when we feel that we need a perspective that we are lacking, right? And I think it's one thing to try to get perspective by entering into that kind of internal monologue, right? A lot of us have it going. I think it's a really nice way to kind of like keep oriented in the world, to like have that conversation with yourself. But I think the really important thing that Lydia is reminding us of is that that perspective comes in all kinds of ways, right? So for me, like one of the most important sort of things that I do when I feel like I'm out of sync is I take a walk. Right? I mean, and there's something about being outside. There's something about the rhythm of just taking one step after another. There's something about being distracted from whatever I'm thinking about by the birds or the clouds or the neighbor that I run into, or seeing something else down the street or in the park, or the sound of the stream down at the edge of campus. Like whatever it is, like there's all, like the world is full of all these things that are capable of answering that call we feel within ourselves for a different kind of perspective, right? And you do some of that, you take some of that in, and when you come back to yourself, I think often you may find that you feel a different kind of energy, you feel a different kind of focus, you feel a different kind of motivation or momentum, right? Because the world has sort of given you something that you knew that you were missing yourself.